from Luke, first chapter, verses 5 through 19. And it was in the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah who belonged to the lineage of Abijah. His wife was a descendant of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. Both of them were righteous before God, living according to all the commandments and righteous requirements of the sovereign God, blamelessly. Now they had no child because Elizabeth was barren, and they both were advanced in age. And it happened that when Zechariah was serving as priest, and his order had the service before God, according to the custom of the priesthood, he was chosen by lot to offer incense, and he entered the sanctuary of the holy God. The whole assembly of the people was praying outside at the time of the incense offering. There appeared to Zechariah a messenger of the living God, standing to the right of the altar of incense. Now Zechariah was shaken when he saw the messenger, and fear overwhelmed him. But the messenger said to him,
"Fear not, Zechariah, for your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will give birth a son for you, and you will call his name John. You will have joy and gladness, and many at the birth will rejoice, for he will be great in the sight of the sovereign God. Wine and strong drink he must not drink. He will be filled with the Holy Spirit from his mother's womb. He will turn many of the women and men of Israel to the Holy One, their God. He will go before the holy God with the spirit and the power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to prepare for the redeeming God, a people made ready."
Then Zechariah said to the messenger,
"How shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my woman is getting old herself."
The messenger answered him, saying,
"I am Gabriel. I stand before God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to proclaim this good news."
Thanks be to God.
Good morning, Metro. Good morning, Metro.
Good morning.
All right, you should have that turkey and gravy still in your blood veins, just giving you strength this morning. Thank you for the reading. That was amazing, and just as I envisioned it. The thing that I love about biblical stories is like they're movies. You know, if you can see. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, thank you, and thank you, Ronnie. I did not know. I didn't know. And we are talking about World AIDS Day today. So thank you for all that you've done, for your witness. So fear not. In 1987, Oprah, why Oprah Winfrey? Just Oprah, we know who she is. She filmed her first TV show on the topic of HIV and AIDS in Williamson, Virginia. And this, for me, I think was the first time, not that I was aware of AIDS, but that I was aware of HIV and AIDS in the way that it was spoken about. We knew, but Oprah brought something to us that I just had not experienced before. The subject of this show, and it was called AIDS Comes to a Small Town. Mike Sisko was a man from Williamson who tested positive for HIV, and he took a dip in the local community pool. It's interesting that in the history of this country, community pools seem to be the place where injustice erupts. right? Dorothy Dandridge, when swimming in a pool and they had to scrub the pool because black people weren't allowed to swim in public pools. Mike Sisko goes swimming in a pool and the mayor of the town closed down the pool because a man with AIDS went swimming in the pool. People panicked. In fact, there was a rumor that went around that said Mike had also spit on food at the local grocery store. Yeah. So in the midst of all the yelling and the screaming and the denouncing, Oprah descends on Williamson, and they have a town hall meeting. It's a circle, Oprah's in the middle, Mike is here, and his neighbors are also sprinkled throughout the audience. And there was yelling and screaming and denouncing of his lifestyle. It was almost as if AIDS gave people the excuse that they needed to talk about Mike for being a gay man. And in the midst of all of that, Dr. Woodrow Myers, who was a public health official from Indiana, attempted to separate fact from fiction about the spread of HIV and AIDS. He attempted to educate and motivate people to think differently about Mike, a member, a son of the community, to think differently about the disease that was living in Mike's body. And Dr. Myers said, I understand that fear. And it's a fear that many communities across the United States have. It's very important that folks know the facts. And the facts are you get this disease in blood-to-blood contact, you get this disease through sexual contact, and a mother can give this disease to her child. I understand the fear, he said. And the face of AIDS at that time was gay, white, and male. Then Arthur Ashe's face was added to that portrait. And then the faces of countless black men across the spectrum of gender identity expanded the portrait. It's important to state it's across the spectrum because there are narratives about particular black men, but it is across the spectrum of gender identity. Linda Scruggs, a black woman who was a long-term survivor of HIV, added another layer of understanding, and her face is in that portrait. And so is the face of Tori Cooper, a black trans woman who is also an organizer and an activist. World AIDS Day today is a day to undo fear about HIV and AIDS. But what an exciting time for Luke to speak to us also on this first Sunday of Advent, especially for such a time as this, as we tie up our sandals and we make our way to a little manger in a little town called Bethlehem, where a little baby is born to bring hope into a sin-sick and troubled world. What a time for Luke to speak to us right now, when people are acting out of their fear and wearing ribbons of rumors and lies and misinformation and disinformation and hatred and vitriol. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive and to talk about this when people are openly expressing their fear and hatred of black and brown immigrants. I haven't heard any fear and hatred about Irish immigrants or Polish immigrants. When people are claiming that drag queens and transgender folks and queer folks are promoting the gay agenda. The only thing on my agenda is getting my afternoon post-preaching nap in and decorating my office door for Christmas. That's all that's on my agenda. Trust me on this. Fears about what will be lost if they take over, because they've already come so close, but no one's clear about who they are. And even if these aren't our fears, our lives are still impacted by the swirling waters around us. And I have to ask myself, between the narrator and Gabriel and Zechariah, whose voice is speaking to me in the midst of all of these fears? And whose voice will I follow? I imagine, let's go to Jerusalem. I imagine that Zechariah woke up that morning, had his first meal of the day, some bread, some figs with Elizabeth, talking about the latest that's happening in Jerusalem. And then he made his way to the temple as he would have over the years. Now, the priests were divided into 24 groups, we'll say. The groups were known as the Mishmarot, and they rotated throughout the year. So at any given time, Zechariah would be with his group. But this time, however, his name got pulled. And he was assigned to go into the Holy of Holies. So it's not coming in the front door. It's not being in the sanctuary. It's not being in the pulpit. It's being all the way in the back, behind the curtain, where only one person was supposed to go at a time to light the incense as an offering to the Most High. Nobody else was supposed to be in there but Zechariah. But then, Gabriel appears. Fear not, Zechariah, for your prayer has been answered. I don't know how long Zechariah and Elizabeth had been praying. I don't know how long before this encounter they had been praying. I don't know how long ago before this encounter they decided to stop praying for that and started praying for something else. I honestly don't know anything about their prayer life other than the fact that they prayed and their prayer was answered. Not only has your prayer been answered, but it comes with a bonus, because you're not just having a son. You're having a son, you're going to call him John. And your son is the one who's going to prepare the way for the one. Fear not. I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I've got some good news for you. This thing about fear. The Greek translated, the word in the Greek is phobeo. Phobeo. Sounds familiar? Phobia, phobeo. What Gabriel is saying to Zechariah is, this is a take a deep breath, fear not. I understand that there is a healthy kind of fear. That's not the fear not that Zechariah is talking about. So I go walking with my dog early in the morning, and there have been bear sightings up in Bedford and Katona. Now, if I'm out walking my 10-pound dog and we see a bear coming down Cross Street, I'm not going to pause and say, so Gabriel, fear not or fear? What am I doing here? I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to fear because it's a bear. And so fear not is also, this is not saying don't be afraid of spiders. I don't like spiders. I don't have arachnophobia, but they're okay. If they stay over there, I won't go get the broom. It's not that kind of fear. Fear not. So fear not. Don't be afraid of queer folks, right? Let's fear not. Let's do away with homophobia. Don't be afraid of immigrants. Let's do away with xenophobia, right? So there's all kinds of fears and phobias. But again, Gabriel is saying to Zechariah, take a deep breath. I'm just here to tell you that your prayer has been answered. And Zechariah's inner voice speaks up loud and says, hold up, time out, time out, time out. Elizabeth and I are well into our AARP years. How is this going to happen? And not that I don't know how, Gabriel. I know how it happens, but we are old. How is this going to happen? And Gabriel, and you know, I am using my baptized imagination, but I love the idea of seeing Gabriel say, look, I just came from a meeting with the Holy One, the creator of every good and perfect gift, the source of your strength, the strength of your life, the womb of life, the one who made you, the one who hears and heard all the prayers and smells the incense that all you priests light all the time. I'm Gabriel. Do you know who I am? I came here to speak to you, just to you, to give you the good news. We have the narrator telling us the story. We have Zechariah and his inner voice. And then we get Gabriel. I know, like I know my name, that there are tough times ahead of us. There are tough times ahead of us. Things are going to get difficult. And they make it more difficult for some people than others. I get it. There are some things about the future I can't imagine. I don't want to imagine because I don't want to bring it into my today before it gets here. You know, I told somebody recently that I cannot dwell too long on what is already unfolding in this country. If I wanted to dwell on all the bad news, I would spend all of my time on websites like the Southern Poverty Law Center. They have a list of all of the stories. Everything that's happening gets posted there. I have to make a different kind of choice. I am making the choice to surround myself, to listen to the voices of people who are giving me hope. My survival depends on it. Our survival depends on hearing voices of hope. I'm not ignoring what's swirling around me, but I'm also not focusing on it. I'm hearing the voice that's telling me, fear not. We're gathered here on this day, the first Sunday of Advent, preparing for that little hopeful baby. Zechariah was a priest serving on behalf of the community that was home for him, home for Elizabeth, and would soon become home for their son, John. And then John would prepare the community for the one who was to come. I stand before you today, dare I say a messenger, because I had a conversation with God yesterday and this morning about hope. I had a conversation with God about whose voice should I be listening to. I'm having a conversation with God and I'm making a choice. And to hear the voice in that garden who walks with me and talks with me and tells me, speaks to me and tells me I am his own. I invite you all to join me in that conversation. We can be messengers to each other in that garden. I invite you to join me there to hear his voice of hope in what seems to be hopeless and devastating times. But my friends, believe me when I tell you, as sure as that candle was lit today, there is hope in this world. Fear not. Fear not. Fear not. Amen.